right. Okie dokie. All right. There we go.
What's up? How you
Just had a
doing?
coughing fit, so my eyes are watering. Shit went down the wrong tube.
It's all right. You okay?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I'm going to make a scoop of pre-factor at the beginning of the video.
Really?
I don't know. Why not?
So you don't? Or, well, it's
So I
not
can
very.
get a
It's
sick
not.
pump. So I
It's
can get
not.
a good pump while I'm here.
It's not too much of a stimulant, though, right?
No, not really.
Yeah. Have you trained yet today?
No. I'm just going to have it because I want to.
Why not? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
haven't tried it yet.
it has 100 milligrams of caffeine, so
Oh,
it's
that's
not a
not
lot.
bad.
And but it also has dynamine, which is like a faster acting, shorter half life stimulant.
Oh, okay.
So it should have like a nice onset, nice and
Yeah, right. Yeah.
pretty quick and
So,
fairly
but
smooth.
if you start vibrating, that's why.
Yes. Yep.
Speaking of vibrating, honestly, my
I
wife picked up this
think-
coffee, and I'll have to look up the name, but I had two sips of it, and I felt like I was flying through the sky
Oh, it's
with
too
my
much. Huh?
laptop. Oh, dude, it was wild. I've never in my life had coffee like that. And she had two cups, and before, I don't know, she had two cups in the morning. By the time the evening hit, her blood pressure was sky high, and she was like had chest pains and stuff. It was
Oh God.
crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. So, what are we talking about today?
So I think we had decided that we were going to do something in the realm of the real reason people lack results in their coaching and their programming, which
Hmm.
is which is pretty broad, and it's kind of along the lines of what we always talk about. But you and I have had a few discussions lately, and I think that we've we've gone some different angles with that too. We've talked about like spirituality and how that plays into it, and we've talked about how um your role in life plays into it and your purpose, and so so getting outside of the realm of just our clients are stressed, okay,
Yeah,
but everyone's stressed.
right. How do you
That's
manage it?
I Well, that's the thing, is I think that needs to be a discussion, is kind of flip the script on that a little bit, is because everyone's so focused on people being stressed, which is important, and there's levels to that, right?
Hmm.
At a certain amount, that bucket, right, that is going to spill over, right? That
Right.
theoretical bucket analogy that we use. But what is it that makes a difference between two people that maybe on paper have the same amount of stress, or maybe
Hmm.
someone even has more? If we actually looked at that objectively from an outside view, you'd say, well, that this doesn't look that bad, or this, wow, this is a lot, but you're doing a really good job with it, right? So
Yeah.
what is it? What is it that maybe characteristic traits, life experience, like all these things? What
I
actually
think
is like
I think I think to me,
determining
like
that?
there's two people that kind of come to mind right now that are clients of mine currently, and actually one was a consult, and then the other is a client. And the one client, when he came to me, he had significant acid reflux when he was stressed. And if I guess if you think about the brain gut connection, if you're stressed enough, your GI is going to be messed up. And a lot of times we see that like in bowel movements and stuff like that. You might see like loose stool or even constipation, but severe acid reflux would just be kind of combination of an overgrowth, but also poor motility and low stomach acid, which would all lend itself to stress at the end of the day. But this guy, he kind of approaches life with he's got different routines that he deals with stress. Like he has a sauna that he just put in his house. He has training, and he understands that not to overdo it, right? Like if you go train, you don't want to trash your central nervous system to the point to where you can't do it. Um, and over time, I think we're probably 3 or 4 months in, and he's sort of, I think what's made him different, mostly than this other comparison, is a self awareness aspect, like a willingness to be self aware, right? So what I find in myself, in my wife, in my son, in you, and a few other close friends of mine, we're in like this upper percentage of people who genuinely want to improve not only themselves for the sake of themselves, but like for Michelle, and I'm sure you want to improve for your boys, and I'm sure you want to improve for your friends and things like that. So I think there's a component of, and I don't know what it is. Maybe you can dive into that after I tell you about this other girl, where there's a something there where, like, if I talk to Landon, my son, and I'm like, hey, bud, we need to look at this particular situation, or we need to look at this thing that you're doing. It's not what you should be doing. Something over here, maybe improve in this way. He better. Um, Kind of the way that comes if I bring something to Donna about our relationship, she views it as my teammate telling me how I can better the team operations, and it's not this attack sort of situation. And
Yeah.
so whenever I bring something to him, he he listens, and he not only does he listen, but he sits with what I say, and then he begins to become more and more self-aware of the things that I sort of draw out as things he needs to work on. And then this consult, um, it was actually a lady overseas, and she's got IBD, and what's going on with an autoimmune perspective. And what we know about autoimmune is like essentially the body's in a disease state, um, see their stress. So as I start to unpack the consult with her, I start to ask her more. I thought I was going to just talk about the blood work, the GI map, the various things that she gave me to look over. And essentially, um, the more we unpacked things, she realized she wasn't self-aware about any of the stress in her life, or what any of the significance was. And I don't think that she lacks the ability to want to be better yet. That's kind of, you kind of figure that out along the way. But I think at a root, it's self-awareness and the desire to minded. And I think somewhere in there, when you talked about spirituality, I think there's some sort of relationship with your creator to some degree. Um, and I don't know why that is, but that's kind of my take off of it. I don't know if that's super detailed or if that's more broad, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, you're really talking about accountability as a
Hmm.
first as so I my question was what's the different differentiating factor? So maybe that is the differentiating factor for a lot of people. There's a book called whether you like the guy or not, it's the Navy SEAL guy, Jocko.
Oh,
Uh,
Willie. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, that extreme ownership. I think he had written that book. I think it's what the book's called. And really, the premise of the whole book is basically just the idea of you are responsible for your action, decisions, and outcomes, right?
Hmm.
And that's difficult, right?
Right.
Because
Right. Right.
human human nature is, and there's things that aren't in our control, but human nature is to blame shift and to do all these other things as like a
Yeah.
defense mechanism, and some of us do that more than others because of our history or because of personality or whatever. Maybe we were taught that as a child, I don't know. But if you can't get, that's the first step, right? Like that's the thing we really have to instill in people. And if you can get there, then you can potentially start making progress. But if you can't acknowledge, man, it's like if you can't even acknowledge that there's an issue, then it's tough. I know the last thing I'll say about that is our job can be especially difficult because a lot of what we deal with isn't exactly quantifiable except for just like lab work and stuff. Like it's not
Yeah.
all,
But
if
that's
we
not
say
always the answer.
it's like, hey, this happened over the course of a decade or this happened over the course of two
Right.
decades, that is where that's really difficult to wrap your head around. So you're like coming into this guy, you're like, I'm coming to you, and you're like, hey, your whole life led to this point. Every decision you've made about health, fitness, stress, family, blah, 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 has led you here, which is true, right?
Yes.
Well, exactly, me and you sitting in whatever we're at right now is a accumulation of our entire life's decisions, not
Yes.
just
Hmm.
today's decisions, right?
Right.
We could be somewhere entirely different, and there's other things that come into play, right? That are not in our control. There's a larger plan, something that's already there for us when we're born. That's where the spirituality thing comes in. But ultimately, we still have some control. I mean, we still have to take accountability for
Here's a
for what's going on.
here's a question. So I've had two or three consults over the last week. And when I sit down with people's blood work, in particular with women, I have to sort of explain like there's three different types of people that come to us. There's healthy people, there's
Mhm.
diseased people, there's autoimmune people.
Mhm.
And that like there's a very rare case that we have a healthy person.
Yeah.
Explain what is healthy. Healthy is when you look at lab work, hormones are in line, cortisol is in line, you don't have any gut dysbiosis, thyroid's in good shape, there's no infections or anything like that. And probably in my tenure, I've had two or three cases where I've pulled somebody's lab work and I'm like, whoa, this is impressive. Like, can we
Yeah.
just take a moment here and congratulate you on
And they
your
have no
beautiful
idea.
blood work? Yeah, 100%.
They have
100%.
no clue.
Right. You're like, wait a minute, your labs look better than mine. So
Yeah. I call
then
them
you
hero
have,
labs. Like this is hero
oh,
blood work. Some,
it's a component of that, right? Then you have the people who are diseased. So that means you've got lower hormones, lower thyroid potentially. And what I typically see is like, especially with women, like testosterone goes first, progesterone goes second,
yeah.
something like that. And then thyroid kind of gets impacted. You've got evidence of dysbiosis in that case. Um, cortisol is usually high, or maybe it's on the downward slope. Um, those types of things. And then autoimmunes, you've been in a disease state for so long that your immune system is now saying, we don't know what to do. And when I unpack that first, then the person can kind of understand, okay, where am I going to fall in this category of lab work? But, and it's cool to everybody. This is going to be controversial, maybe. Um, every single woman that I've done lab work with has lacked a masculine man in their life. So, a man who leads in every way, takes responsibility for everything in the house. And responsibility doesn't mean it's his fault, right? So, like, if she went and cheated on somebody, it's not his fault, but it's his responsibility. But he did something, right? He kind of did something to make the relationship not as stable potentially, or maybe the person is not as psychologically okay. But to move forward, I think there's this masculine man component where the responsibility lies on the man to be able to control his emotions, to provide not only financially, but to provide a safe place and to be able to communicate clearly, and for the growth and the health of the relationship with the spouse or the significant other, along with teaching the children how to manage and communicate their emotions and also be in a healthy place. And most every scenario that I've ever been in with a female with blood work that is downregulated, they are in a relationship that is less than stellar. Or they've
most of the time.
been in a uh they've got a lot of abuse in their past, and I don't mean physical, it could be mental, it could be any kind of type of abuse. But if you see a person that pops up at 22 years old with an autoimmune condition, it to me it's very rare to not see it correlated with relationships that lack. Um, I don't know how I don't know how much you see that, but in my mind, like even when I look at the responsibility in the world that we live in, there's a lot of men who don't operate from a servant perspective. So that's what I really mean is like this to be a masculine man, I think, is to be a servant. And to understand that, I think to have a relationship with your creator, it would be an understanding that he came here to serve us and sort of modeling Jesus Christ. And when I see the lack of a man trying to become more and more like that, there's a significant lack of progress in anybody's life to get better. Now, I do think, and I think, what is it, 80% of women make up most of the autoimmune conditions?
Yeah, it's a fairly high percentage. I don't know the exact
So
statistic.
I think it's 80%. So like to me, that's wild. And that also kind of correlates with this thought process that I have.
Mhm.
What would you say? I know that's kind of
Um,
controversial, but
yeah,
what would you say?
yeah. Uh, I think that's right. I think that I can tell you wholeheartedly that when I do run into, especially a younger, let's say I get like a younger female client, and I would say as I get older, my client bracket shifts a little bit in age just naturally. But, if I get someone that's under the age of, this could be males too, because I do a fair amount of these with guys under the age of 24. I don't know. We'll say like 23, 22 in that range. They have the reason that they have an autoimmune condition or whatever they're dealing with is usually a result of something bodybuilding related, right? Like they've done some extreme stuff. Maybe they had an eating disorder first, right? In
Yeah.
their teens, they probably still do. They say they don't, but they really still do. And that's developed into whatever they're dealing with now. So then you have to ask yourself, because to them, like, that's the reason, or I can tell them that that's the reason. But why were you
Did you
drawn
have
to
the eating
those?
disorder? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like,
Why are
why?
we bodybuilders? Like,
Well, that's the
what
thing.
happened to us?
But that's what I tell people too, and they don't. They look at me, and I'm like, look, I'm not innocent in all this. Like, why do you think I was drawn to bodybuilding? I know that a lot of the people I work with haven't been around that long, but over time, I periodically will mention my story and these things. It's like, okay, I'm here. I was drawn to bodybuilding because of my perfectionist tendencies, because of, all these other things, this neuroticism, this stuff. I'm the same, right?
Yep.
I
Hmm.
made the mistakes. I did all the stuff. I dealt with the consequences. I did all that. So luckily,
So let me ask you a pointed question. The perfectionism, where does it come from? I know that's a little vulnerable. And then have you fixed it? And how have you fixed it?
uh, well, I will say that in my experience, most people they don't stay in bodybuilding, at least whether it's like a lifestyle bodybuilder or a competitive, they don't stay in that lifestyle very long. Usually the way that most people fix it is to flip it 180, their life goes completely different. They just completely exit. It's much more rare that someone can actually stay in the space that
You and
curated
me,
the
both.
disease.
Yeah, you and me
Right.
both.
It's very rare that someone can stay in that space and still fix it at the same time. Does that make sense? Like, how
Yeah.
I would be an example of that. Like, I've continued to bodybuild, but I've also simultaneously matured and corrected a lot of those things. I'm still who I am. Like my therapist says, table's always going to be a table. It'll never be a chair, but you could be a
Yeah.
sturdier table, right?
Right.
Like,
100%.
she's like, you just got
You
to
can have
kind of,
four legs instead of one.
right. Like, you just got to kind of accept, like, okay, there's some things that are always going to be natural to you as far as your tendencies. But for me, exposure, man, like, so much of this is just exposure. Make a mistake, pay the consequences, then you have a choice. Do I keep doing those things and make another mistake that could be bigger, or do I learn from that? Because every one of those things, whether it was like when I had to go to the hospital when I was younger, or the gut issues or the adrenals or the hormones, I had a choice in that moment that I could learn from that and make some, kind of change, or I could just keep doing it and hope that it didn't happen again. And but what I realized is a lot of the things that we're scared of when you have these perfectionist tendencies, they're not that scary when you do them. When you do them
Right.
and you realize, hey, I start small. What is it, man? Maybe it's just like having dinner with a friend, or having dinner with your significant other. Like, you have food fear. What if you did it and then you realize on Monday you're just like, all right, I'm still right. I'm still here. I'm still alive. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's exposure therapy is a very real therapy modality that people can benefit from. That's more of like a controlled environment, right? But for me, it was just doing it, man. Like, I got forced into these situations and I had to decide, like, okay, I'm going to change something and try something different. And then I said, wow, that wasn't that bad. you know?
Yeah, but there had to be something inside you that said, I know I messed up. I know I need to change it. And I actually desire to change. Because you and I both know people
Yeah.
in our life that we love. I the same year over year, and we've known each other for almost five now. And it's like, okay, for 5 years, I've seen you grow significantly. You've seen me grow significantly. What is the factor, and maybe you can hint on this too, like even the spiritual growth side, does that play with the healing of perfectionism within you? And for me, I know that the closer that I get into relationship, the more refined I am, because I become more and more like the characteristics of him. And so, there's patience and kindness and slow to anger and long suffering and all these things. And I think there's that's also a construct of masculinity. So when you sit back and just do a little quick introspection, it's like, okay, I mean, we kind of been through it over the past 5 years, you and me, just personal life stuff, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, what was like the knock on the door was like, hey, probably need to
Yeah.
check this.
Um, definitely a combination of all those. It was a spiritual relationship. It was intimate relationships. It
Yeah.
was, um, man, even business stuff, even things within coaching and,
Like trying to be a better coach.
well, yeah, because so here's something that I think has helped that I maybe haven't talked about as much is our space has our space has changed. If anyone has been here and haven't noticed,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of it is because of just the information overload that a lot of us are experiencing with social
Hmm.
media and access to that stuff. And I think that that's good and bad. It's definitely heightened a lot of those tendencies and characteristics that we were already dealing with prior to that, but now they're amplified. So then I had to realize the significance of that was even higher. So I thought, man, I've got to. Here's what I noticed was happening. I had to start spending more of my time working on that stuff than I did on changing people's macros and updating people's training templates and like all this other shit, which is what I want to do. Guys, I don't want to I don't want to have the 47th conversation about why you need to get off chat GPT and stop freaking out every time you have a tummy ache. We don't want to do that, right?
Right.
But we have to
It's
sometimes.
transition to that. Yeah.
But so I guess my point is that as it was kind of a natural evolution, as a lot of those things in my life improved, my lens changed and I started seeing it more in other people. And I thought, ooh, I want no part. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to have those experiences anymore. And it's really been hard because it took a lot of ownership and it took a lot of like
Trey's giving the amen.
it took a lot of it took a lot of me realizing that there's a lot of stuff that's my fault
Yeah.
and had to change it. But that's tough, man. And I don't and the thing is, you know what? If someone comes to me and they don't want to change, it's okay. I
Oh,
can't,
yeah,
right?
you can't force it.
Like
It's so crazy though.
I'm not going to get upset. We're not going to do that. That's not what this is about. I'm not going to shame them.
Hmm.
Um, and that's okay. You can be whoever you want to be and you can stay the same. But the problem is the goals and the aspirations and the things they talk about and the things they want. They just don't really, the actions don't align with it. The personalities, the mindsets, it doesn't align. So you can't get upset if what you want is here, but you're only willing to go here, right?
Yeah. So
We
what do
can't
you think?
we
What do you
can't fix that.
think? Like, what is there a common denominator in that group of people? Because to me, and you know, it's interesting. Like when I have clients, they're usually long term. I think,
Yeah,
I think if I had to do an average of a person, I think the average is like at least 2 years with me at the very least time amount of
yeah,
time. Um, the longest client I have is about almost 6 years now. I'm sure you have long term. I mean, you have me long term,
yeah. Long
and
term, sure.
like when you have a long term client, does the probability of change increase? That's one. Two, when you do have a client who doesn't necessarily want to change initially, do you see if you can keep them over and above a year? does the transition to want to be better get higher?
Yeah.
And what is the common denominator of the person who says, I can't change and quits? Like, what what do you think is the common denominator there? And then what, from a time frame perspective, do you think time and under guidance changes the probability of change? And then how long do you see it take someone want to change?
If they made it that far, I think chances are pretty good that they, if they haven't gone through some pretty significant change already, that they're going to, right? Because they believe somewhere in there, they believe that they can, which is why they're still there. Because by that time, they've already heard me tell them 7,000 times and, with different, using
Yeah,
different verbiage,
yeah,
right? So
100%. Yeah,
there's got to be something in there that's keeping them going outside of just like sheer stubbornness, right?
right. Hmm.
The there's a few factors that probably determine whether or not they do get over that hump. One is a lot of the time I notice that there will often be like an external life event that happens to them at some point. Something changes and it adds additional perspective to what I've already been saying. So for example, um, they have like a relationship change or they have like a career change. I don't know. Anything significant that kind of gives them that aha moment that, oh, what Austin's been telling me is actually correct. And it solidifies that, right? It's kind of like if you tell your kid something, they don't want to listen to you, but then the coach of their team, their baseball team tells them the same thing. They listen
Oh
to the
yeah.
coach.
Oh yeah.
You're like
Oh yeah.
conflict of interest,
Yeah,
right?
you're like, I've been saying the same thing
You're
for
like, dude, I've been
more.
saying, you're like, I've been saying that forever. So it's maybe they have. I find that happens a lot. Like there's something that happens, and they go, "Oh, okay, I believe this now. This makes sense. This feels right." But the other thing is that on the flip side of that, there could be something significantly negative that happens that is also a driver. So most people, if we're talking just purely health related stuff, the only reason that anyone's going to change is because it's too bad and they don't want to deal with it anymore. Then realistically, it's
Yeah.
the need the the need for the want to feel better and do better has now surpassed the fear of changing whatever it is that they have to change. But that ratio can sometimes take a little while. Sometimes there has to be something like really, really significant, right? You
Yeah.
know
And
how
I
that
think
is.
I think I was listening to a sermon, believe it or not, and um Philip Anthony Mitchell was the pastor I was listening to, and he made the comment. He said, if you're in the middle of pain or suffering, make it pay you something.
Right.
And I never really realized, like, I've always been this type of person. Like when I'm going through pain or suffering, I'm like, man, what can I learn from this situation? What can I gain from this situation? What can I not do in this situation? And I don't know if everybody has that in them to sort of like I'm like, man, if I'm going to go through a trying time, I mean, over the last 3 weeks with the car accident that we've had and everything, it's been really trying. And even I haven't even really checked in. This is the first full week back I've been. And my but because life was so chaotic and there was so much on our plate, and you just have to kind of look at the pain and the suffering, and it's like, well, there's no way around it. I can't hop over it. I can't go around it. It's like I have to go through it. Well, if I'm going to go through it, then I better have some wisdom on the other side of it. And
Mm-hmm.
if I don't gain wisdom through the process, then it's not going to grow me. It's not going to change me. And so when I have clients, it's it's like what I see with most people. Most of my clients want to change. Some of them have the ability to change in a shorter time frame. And we're not talking about like physique development, right? Because that's a different thing. You have
Mhm.
the shorter time frames just sheer because of genetics. You got a guy like Paulin, you know, it's like he goes
It's
to
like you just started doing
right?
most things right.
For 5
Yeah.
months, he's done more progress than you and I have in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So then it's
Right.
that's different. And then you have the people who like are dealing with some sort of health issue. So the health issue thing, I guess it depends on how bad it is.
Right.
Sometimes people are like, I have a friend of mine who anytime she took antioxidant at all, she had like dizzy spells and nausea and all this other stuff. And that really motivated her to become smarter, like to learn more about her own body, to figure out what was triggering things, what wasn't triggering things. Now, some people don't have the wherewithal in that case to do that, and that's why they come to us. But what I see is like how patient not only can they be with themselves, but how patient can we be with the client too? Because it really determines the length of that relationship. And the longer I have access to the person, to me, the probability of them healing is higher.
Yeah.
Now, but it's also like, okay, the only time I ever see anything go the opposite way is when there's a financial event, right? They're like, okay, financially, I can't afford this anymore. I've got to go. And you understand that. But ultimately, if they don't get back on their feet, they kind of struggle with this health issue for as long as the rest of the time I know them.
Right.
And I don't know if you see that too.
Yeah. That and that and um if people start to get better and that's not a I was talking about how that's not the time to stop
To
working with it
exit, yeah,
either.
right,
There's it's much like your physique, there's the phases of surplus and deficit, but there's also phases of maintenance potentially, right?
right, right.
Somewhere in there. And so that's really important is form habit, maintain habit. Now can you, if you look at like the book Atomic Habits, like one of the things he talks about in there is that eventually it becomes the amount of time it takes to process the information and make a decision is basically zero and it's completely unconscious. That's a habit, right? That is solidified. That is you don't have to do anything because it's programmed. That's software in your brain. Um, Software takes a long time to code.
Yeah, I was going to
That's
say, with you, can you give an example of something that might not be common with your clients that is a habit for you?
who it biggest the biggest thing, probably most relevant to this discussion, is probably just um it's probably just like I'll give you two. One is being flexible if we're caught off guard or we're off plan out in public. These are like very practical things that every day that people run into. I could leave my house for an entire weekend and take no food with me and come back and have lost no progress or continued to make progress or whatever it is that I'm doing at the time, based on my goal. Because, well, we live in most people, not all of my clients, but we live in like very established first world countries that we have access to everything. And there's like literally no reason that you can't pivot
Agreed.
and make different
How do you,
selections. Like I said,
so how do you pivot? Like, are you tracking it on a macro
let's
app or what are you
let's
doing?
say that and you could do that, but let's say that you could track even if you just tracked your calories for 2 days, like nothing's going to happen, right? We're talking very short term. They don't know that though because they've been used to following a rigid plan, or they just associate everything or nothing,
Uh-huh.
or there's not really
Yeah.
anything in between. But I could go into, I mean, nowadays you could go into like one of these large travel gas stations around here. It's Sheets, but there's also like Wawa and like, all these
Yeah.
other ones.
Hmm.
Dude, I could eat. I could sit in there all day and get all my meals in.
Right.
It would be expensive to do it,
Yeah, 100%. But
but
you could do it. 100%.
100% you could do it and wouldn't even miss a beat. That's like a practical example. I think the other thing is just the other thing, and this I'm very understanding of because um, just sheer exposure and reps is how reacting to differences in day to day in terms of how I feel or symptoms or just anything on a day to day basis. People that are sick are often very sensitive to fluctuations, right?
Yes.
Because they become aware, and we have to be very careful, right? Because now we're increasing their awareness around a problem. And so that can also increase their sensitivity to symptoms, potentially,
Right.
like
Right.
uh, analysis. So,
So to break that down, you have a person who has X issue, and now they're so fixated on it that they're having that issue repetitively because
right.
they're fixated on it
Right. And we see that. We see it's something that
all the
was
time.
this big has now become this big because of fixation on it, which is driving that sympathetic nervous system and on and on and on you go. Um and so we have to be really, really careful. We may put more or less emphasis on certain things to help aid in that process. But myself, you asked about me specifically, I don't like my whole philosophy at this point is what if tonight, I hope I don't, knock on wood, what if I don't get a good night of sleep? I hope I do. I'm not jinxing myself, damn it. But
I don't know. You took that pre-workout at 2 o'clock.
let's say that I don't. Fine. So what? What do I do tomorrow? I don't know, like I gotta, you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
don't, I'm gonna just get up and have the same day as to the best of my ability. And some of these things, if everything, and this is a control thing, this is a perfectionism thing, this is also a result of not understanding that acute things don't really matter that much. That's
Yeah.
something that we know as coaches. But when you take something like that, you have poor night of sleep, it could just snowball into some like cascade through the whole rest of the week and turn into this huge like blowout. And we see it all the time. And I read, I get this update and I'm talking to the client and I think, where did this start? Let me
Yeah.
go
Unpack
back
it.
in this
Yep.
sequence of events. Okay, it all started on Monday when you got a bad night of sleep. That messed your mood up for the day. And you were fixating on that and you thought, man, my training's not going to be good today. And then you were depressed. And then what'd you do? You had a poor training session, amplified, bam, and it's
Yeah.
like
And then it
on and
goes
on and
more
on.
and more and more. Yeah.
And that snowball gets bigger and faster and bigger and faster. And then all of a sudden, there's no stopping it. And you've spiraled completely out of control from one thing. Um, but when you're
So
sick,
go
like I
ahead.
was going to say, like when you're sick and you're dealing with these things, and even when you're not sick, like you're going to have bad days.
Bad
But
days.
dude, but when you are sick and you have autoimmunity or you have GI issues or you have whatever, not only are we over here like pulling levers and poking and doing all this other stuff, which is also going to cause fluctuations, you're just going to have fluctuations. Like it's normal.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, again, it's this whole perfectionist thing, but for whatever reason, there's like a huge lack of understanding of basic physiology and neurochemistry and understanding like humans don't, this is not life.
It's not normal.
That'd be nice, right?
That's yeah, 100%.
Um, that would be nice, but also that would be pretty unfulfilling at times, probably because without a little bit of this, we don't get to experience much of
The
that.
highs. Yeah.
But man, you gotta have a little bit of just resilience. But there are those clients where one client stubs their toe and their whole week's through, and the other client's like, "Hey, dude, I don't know, like I got shot in my leg in a drive-by
Yeah.
this
And I
morning,
made it to the gym.
but my, you know, my calf's a little sore, so I skipped my calf training today, but I still did some leg extensions."
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah.
then I have to think, okay, either A, you're just very resilient, or you're really, really crazy, and we should talk about that.
100%.
I don't know
So
which
I
of it is.
that's that I was going to ask you that. So I've had two types of clients. I've had the one that can do the little thing and then it snowballs into the next thing, into the next thing, to the next thing. But then I also have a client who has five companies that they run, and they have their kids, and they have their husband, and they have their this, and they have their that, and like the to-do list becomes longer and longer and longer and longer, and before you know it, there's a breaking point, right? It's kind of like building a house of cards, right? You build this house of cards and you get to the very top, and you put the last two cards that are going to be the little teepee at the top, and then it crashes down, right? Well, at some point, the little two cards that you put up there, that client didn't see that that was the trigger point. But from a third party perspective, you're like, well, what changed? You put two cards on the building and it fell over. But to them, the two cards that they put on the building wasn't significant.
Mhm.
So when you break it down and you say, hey, such and such, you've had this stressor and this stressor and this stressor, and then you put two cards on top of it and it came crashing down. Do you see that? And they're like, I don't know, but I get really stressed out because you tell me I'm stressed. It's like,
Yeah,
that's not what it is. That's not what it is. It's everything that you don't want to acknowledge as stress
yeah,
because it can't really immediately change, right?
yeah.
So
Nothing we
those are
do,
the
and that's nothing we could, like nothing we do as coaches, most of us, it's very rare that in any given week that we're going in there and changing everything.
right,
Not often, right?
right,
Unless we're having
right.
to like completely revamp, but it's so few times that we actually do that. So we have this control of variables, assuming that they're doing it, right? Assuming that it's like
Sure.
at least 80% being followed, I guess. Um, but to your point, I've had these situations where I'll go back to the updates. Again, do I want to spend a half hour doing this? No, but sometimes I got to prove a point. Like I can go back and, okay, here is last week, here's 2 weeks prior, here's two, blah, blah. I said, basically, in conclusion, we have had
A rough
five,
few weeks.
we've had 5 days in the past 3 months that haven't been
A
terrible.
shit show. Right.
Right. And I'm like, you've got to expect at some point
Right.
something's going to happen. Like, your tire can only take so many nails in it before it's going to go flat, man. Like, it's just, and it's okay. We're not mad. We're not upset. We're just kind of, we're just stating facts. And it's not that and I do this very often with people and I tell them, like, look, I'm compassionate. I'm listening. I'm hearing you. But what I'm doing right now is I'm leading you with facts, not emotions in this moment. I'm just kind of showing you these things that have been leading up to where we're at because I want you to understand very, very logically and simply what's happening. And then we can work on it from there. But you've got
Yeah.
to understand it first. We're never
Yeah.
going to if you don't understand it, it's going to be really difficult for us to progress much further than that. And you know what? It can take 2 tries. It can take 10 tries. It can take 50 tries. Right?
It could. Yeah. So going back to you
might take
in
a
that
lot.
in that same breath, right? Okay, so like let's just say over the course of 5 years, the amount of progress that you've made as a bodybuilder, I would say is pretty significant. I would say for, a guy of your genetics and your makeup and all that stuff, like
Normal.
you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. And so but that requires that stretch of time. You're going through stretches of time when you can let whatever stressor completely wreck you. Like, for example, even in my own life right now, like the last 3 weeks, I allowed the amount of stress get to me to the point to where I underate in our bulk for 3 weeks, right? And so what does that impact? Stress impacts hunger. Stress has impacted my sleep. Stress has impacted my ability to communicate to my wife and to my son. Um, Stress has impacted um, my consistency in communication to you, my consistency in communication with Trey on the podcast. Um, it's affected everything. Now, granted, the amount of stress that I've had is probably more significant than most people experience in a 3 week period of time, but I've let it kind of derail things to a degree. The way that I go about getting it back on track is owning it up, like owning it to you. Like when we talk, like the last time we talked, I'm like, hey, this is what's happened. I'm going to get back on track. This is the time frame, and I set a time frame. And like I have to hold myself to that time frame because now that I've given it to you, now I'm going to be held accountable from you. And like, let's be honest, there's times when you've held me accountable. I'm like, I don't really like you right now because you're telling me what's up. You know
Sure.
what I mean? And so like, but that's kind of you have to be willing to hear that,
Yeah.
hey, you're not being accountable here. Then there's there's like a recentering of my own spiritual relationship with God. Like I haven't necessarily been talking to him a significant amount over the last 3 weeks as much as I normally would. So I've kind of returned back to that accountability of like, okay, where do I find my peace? Where do I find these attributes? How do I relax in these moments of stress? And that's a part of my journey. Like for for myself too is having difficult conversations with my wife. There was at one point she's like, hey, you're a real jerk, like this and this, you kind of cracked under pressure here, you didn't manage your emotions well. So there's an accountability there. So there's a multitude of things that I sort of have to do to get all the weight off of me to be able to go and perform and take care of myself. And like you said, there's some things that are just habit. But when you really get knocked in the teeth, is it the perfectionism that's driving you towards the like keeping consistent, or what's helping you get back on track with yourself? Because that's interesting, right? You don't have a
Mm.
coach that you're accountable to. Like you coach yourself in the off season, and then when you start to compete, you get with Cliff. So ultimately, how do you manage those things? Because I think sometimes people think you're perfect. I know my clients think I'm perfect, and
Yeah.
I'm not.
You laughing? True. Well, you're right, and that's just not true.
Right, right.
It's I think a big part of it is just coming to the realization that when those things do happen, that things might not be perfect, but it's better than nothing. Essentially,
True. Yeah.
it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of that whole thing of, so if I go in the gym and I don't have the best training session, or, I can't eat a meal or I don't know, whatever, like, and whatever it is, doesn't really matter. I just have to be okay with it. And I have to understand that sometimes shit happens and I have to, move forward. It's this whole with these perfectionist tendencies, it is very much the all or nothing mentality that comes
Mm.
into play. And it's like, if I can't do everything exactly like I want to do it, then I shouldn't even do it. Or I'm going to panic or I'm going to freak out. It's like, man,
Yeah, you got emotions there. Yeah.
we can't, that is going to be such a roller coaster. That is going to be a very, lackluster
That's,
experience in terms of progress over the course of time. And a lot of that is because a lot of that is two things. One is that some of the people we work with haven't been doing this very long. So I know that when you're either younger or you've only been maybe bodybuilding or in fitness for a year, the idea of something being off for 2 weeks when it's been like super exciting and all this other stuff, that seems like a lot. Now, when you've been doing it for 15 years or 20 years, you're like,
yeah, it's
okay,
different.
like
Yeah.
whatever, right? Or
I'll see you in a
when,
month.
right, when you're 20 years old, and I tell this to my younger clients, I say, hey, look, I was 20, I get it. You've only been doing this for 2 years. So the idea of me telling you that it's going to take 6 months to fix whatever we're doing, that seems crazy, right? So 6 months is 25% of the total time that you've actually been doing this. 6 months for me is 5% of the total time or 1% or whatever. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to deal with that. But I also realize that 6 months is like tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, dude, it's
Especially when you get older.
it's just like we're there.
It's whizzing by.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything's just moving and going, and so life experience and age and all that stuff is probably a big factor in that process that you were kind of asking about. Because I experienced that a lot when I was starting out, and I thought, always plan the next show, always know when, everything's like super specific, but then you realize that leaves no room for pivoting anywhere and no room for flexibility. And
Do you
that's
think
why
it's
I'm only,
maturity?
it's maturity. It's realizing like goal setting. Um, the way that people set goals is often very flawed. Like one of the big tenets of goal setting is you have to be able to change the goal if you need to
Yeah.
change the goal, or
Yeah.
you have to be able to
That's
change
fair.
the whatever the path is that you thought you would use to get to the goal. That path could change as well. Um, Having a coach can be really helpful, right? Like having someone that has a lot of experience can help you achieve realistic goal setting.
Yeah.
Um, I know with clients sometimes they'll tell me what are we doing for the next, I don't know, 6 months. Every person that asks me that are these exact people that I'm talking that struggle.
Mm. Yeah.
It's plain as day. It's so obvious. It's so easy to see from doing it so often. They are the exact type of person that runs into these, like, because there is no flexibility. There is no plan B. I know, like, gonna do it no matter what. I said until some shit comes up that you aren't tough enough to endure, because guess what? I'm telling you, there are powers so much above and beyond your willpower and your grit that you can't, whether it's God or whether it's the dude down the street that
Yeah. It's just,
that
yeah.
fucking rear ends you in your car. I don't know, man. Like
It's
there
what
are
happened to
just
us.
exactly there are so many things that I don't give a shit how much weight you lift in the gym and how tough you are and your nose is bleeding when you do squats. Like,
It's
you're
going to
not
rock your world.
you're going to get rocked. And if you don't have the ability to pivot, if you don't have the ability to be flexible, and I've been rocked by stuff. I've definitely had some big things that I thought that I was questioning. Oh shit, like this is going to change my trajectory big time when I'm talking bodybuilding stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's but the things that I used to be concerned about, you know, they're like a blip on the radar, man. It doesn't even show up anymore, right?
So
Because
do you think that's a product of like learning what it is to take care of yourself, and like taking care of yourself sort of takes priority over everything else at the end of the day once you get through like maybe the initial, like for example, for me, one of the issues has been fighting with the insurance company to get the right value for our car. Like I have to do a certain amount of work to be able to get to the end result that I need. Once I get to the end result to that, maybe I need to put some things that I usually do to take care of myself. I can sit over here, and then I can come back to it once I fix the thing in front of me. And it's like maybe it's the reps of like learning, okay, even if I'm not hungry, I need to eat. Even if I'm, you know, in the middle of something that I should work and do late, I need to go to sleep because I'm going to do it better tomorrow. Um, I need to be aware of how much water I take in. I need to be aware of the supplements that I take. I need to be aware of, you know, my relationships around me. Um, check in with myself. Like like today, this is a little bit of a vulnerability thing. And I don't know how long you want to run, but we're about an hour, and I won't chat too much. But ultimately, like Donna has not been able to train um, because of her injuries. And it's been 3 weeks, and I'm just now back in the gym consistently this week. And I have a training partner, and he's helpful, and I really enjoy doing that. But I used to be, Donna used to be there every morning with me. And whether we were training or not together, I could look up and I could see my wife, and I could be like, oh, she's here. It's great. It's a comfort, right? Well, this morning I got a little emotional because I'm, 3, 4 days back into the gym, and my wife's not there. And I
yeah,
didn't
some guilt
realize
maybe too.
that I was pushing that down, was pushing things down to get through the thing in front of me. And what's interesting is like I do a pretty good job of like I can compartmentalize pretty well now when I have to and get through a situation. But if you compartmentalize and never go back to it, then the body kind of keeps that score, right? It's like, well, that's how
Yeah.
people get ill. Well, now when I take the moment and I'm being with myself, and maybe I have a little quiet time and I'm reading the Bible, or maybe I'm just sitting driving down the road, and I have this realization that I'm emotional and I miss my wife. And I think that's healthy. But I think what people do is they hop from stressful event to stressful event to stressful event to stressful event, and they're not sitting with themselves, facing what they compartmentalize to get through the stressful event in front of them. And is that a practice that you do? Like,
Hmm.
do you have to, are you just a compartmentalizer that's like, let's fucking go, and you just run right through it?
I mean, to an extent, depends on what it is. I think yes, but part of that's also because, like we said earlier, what actually registers as something as debilitatingly stressful has it has to be fairly significant, right? But um,
Or
but
layers of it.
yeah,
Like
but with
it's very rare that you have an event that's like debilitating by itself. I would say
yeah,
there's more layers of stressful things, right?
Um, yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, so many things are very, very, very automatic, and they're, um, you know, and there's also just some non-negotiables that we have to show up and do. And I think that if you are as a man, like very much that biological need to serve and to do all those things,
You
I
gotta
would
go.
probably, I would probably feel more stressed and potentially depressed, anxious, those uncomfortable feelings. If I don't do those things,
I would agree.
even even if maybe today's not the best day, and I could probably just like, dude, I need to go take a nap instead. It's like, I think I'm probably going to be better off serving and doing the
Doing
things
the thing.
that I'm meant to do and that are fulfilling. You mentioned jumping from one thing to another. This is a little off track, but I'll kind of leave us with this: is that I think you'll understand what I mean. But we were talking on a podcast. I don't think it wasn't the last one, but the one previous to that, about a lot of people that are used to riding. Stress is the only thing that's keeping them going, right? It's just
Yeah.
sympathetic tone all the time. That's the only thing that's keeping their nose and their eyes above water. What I find kind of interesting, and I didn't even realize this until probably the last couple of years, is when they start figuring out how to decompress and they start figuring out like how to relax, whatever. People feel worse at the beginning. They're like, dude, I'm so tired now. I'm like, yes, because this is
It's
how
your
you have
central nervous
felt.
system recovering.
This is what you've actually been in for the past decade. It's just that you've never actually sat in it long enough to realize this is what you're feeling. A very short-term example is after a contest. So if a client competes in a show, they're very, very excited. Let's say they do well, right? Let's say they do really good at the show. They're very, very excited. You have all these grandiose things going on. You're feeling it, all this stuff. You're probably exploring all these passions that you maybe set off to the side during the prep. You're reinvesting yourself and all this stuff. 2 weeks after the show, or maybe 1 week after the show, it all crashes down. You're like, right? Because that adrenaline comes down, all that sympathetic drive comes down. All you're really experiencing is that's where your body was at prior. It was just very much masked by the fact that
You're
you
running
were
through it.
you were heightened. That's okay. That I think that is a very valuable thing for people to experience. I think that the crash, I know as intrusive as that sounds, I think that is a valuable thing for people to experience, because if they never experience that, then they don't really have. That's like one of those things, that a realization of, oh shit, I do need to take care of myself. I do need to pay attention to these things. And
So
so,
do you think, here's the question. So do you think everyone should get healthy and do a show? Would that
um,
benefit the world?
I think that, I don't know, but I can say for sure that all of us have to have a reason to change.
Yeah.
If you don't have a reason to change, if
Right.
there's nothing, if there's no reason, whether it's like your relationship or your job or your health, like if there's no reason, you're never going to change. There's going to be no reason for you to form new habits. There's going to be no reason for you to break away from bad tendencies. There's going to be, because why would you? You're like, dude,
It's
everything's
fine.
working.
I'm
I'm
fine. Yeah.
good. it could
Yep.
be it could be greatly affecting your progress as a bodybuilder. It could be affecting the people around you. It could be affecting everything. But if it hasn't gotten to the point where you're put in a situation where you have to choose, you probably will never you'll never change. And
Yeah.
so for me, um, and for a lot of people, that's why I said earlier, oftentimes there's some kind of event or something significant that happens to them, and that's the moment that connects all the dots. So all the things I've already been saying to them and we've been talking about, it really feels true and feels real
Yeah.
now.
It's the suffering that pays them.
And then they think, wow, all that stuff, all that gibberish, all that frou shit that Austin's been, saying to me. And I've tried it every way, man. I've tried nice, I've tried stern, I've tried everything in between, but then they get it. And when they get it, then the real work
Yeah.
starts.
It works then. Yeah.
Then we start to work. But I do genuinely think that hard things are beneficial. I think that experiencing something difficult is probably the only way that most people will really reach the greatness that is within them, whatever that is. You
It
don't
just
really
has to
see a
be
whole
it
lot of.
has to be the opposite of the hard that you're used to.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, think about a lot of the influential people around the world that you maybe look up to. Everyone has a story, man. Like they used to be really poor, or they used to be, you know, they had something happen to them, or you've like, how do these people with against all odds, let's say they're a military vet and they're like they amputee, they've lost their limbs or something, and then they go in and do amazing things the rest of their life. Would they have done those things had that not happened to them? And I would say no,
I would
probably
agree.
not. Maybe. I don't know. I can't assume, but I'm going to say
I think it's the suffering and the pain that molds you. I don't think there's anybody that has ever done anything great that where their life wasn't already on that track. Like there's different starting points in life, right? Like
yeah,
you can have a person who's born into a billionaire like life and family or whatever, and they may have success to a degree that we don't ever experience success.
sure.
But if you take a person, you put them at the same starting line and you put them through certain suffering, certain types of pain and certain types of hard, it's that in which that molds them and it changes the trajectory of the thing that they're going to go and do be great. I mean, I even think about it within you. It's like you've had some unique challenges along the way, whether it be growing up or whether it be, in your younger years to put you at the forefront. And somebody made a post the other day, like you don't get enough credit. You don't get enough credit for changing the entire culture of the coaching world that we're in right now. You were well before your time. You were learning things because of certain situations that happened within your life
Right.
in your own life, right. It's like it was either a loved one that you were trying to fix or it was yourself you were trying to fix. So ultimately, like the suffering in which you went through brought you to the precipice of where you are today. And where you are today, you've changed the entire trajectory of the the entire community that we live in. And like, there's only like four dudes that I know that have done that. And like, John Meadows was one of them. And like, to be
Yeah.
mentioned in that
So
category, you gotta realize like you're great. You're great at what you do. You're great at anything you put your hands to. And I think it's because of the suffering that you've been through. And like,
sure.
I even think about Trey and like all the challenges that he's been through. What an unbelievable coach that doesn't get enough credit, right? And he's on your team, and that he's been through a lot of stuff personally that's brought him to the place where, you pretty much give him anything that you have, and he can figure it out just like you. And
But what and
so,
you're I mean and you're an example too. It's just because you wouldn't you would coach still, right? You'd probably still do, let's say that you were still coaching, but you wouldn't be having the same conversations with people. You wouldn't have the same lens. You wouldn't have, you wouldn't be pushing people to become great. You wouldn't even be paying attention to half the things you pay attention to had it not been for your own experiences. And I know that to be true because I was already coaching way back, right?
100%.
But what I'm doing now and the way and the types of people I'm helping and where it's kind of taken me in the industry is just a result of two things. Things that happened, my own mistakes, most of which were my fault. And then when they happened, I made the choice that I was going to learn from them and grow from them and try to give something back to other people. I didn't have to do that. I could have definitely went the other direction and been like, bodybuilding and fitness are the dumbest thing ever and no one should ever do it, which a lot of people have gone that route too, right?
Hmm.
They're like,
Yeah.
dude, this is toxic. We should get out of here. Like no one should be here. This is a terrible place to be. And you could argue that that could be true if you don't if you don't take those lessons and learn from them. But that could be anything, I suppose, right?
I think any community that, I think there's any community of people that rally around a particular type of sport or purpose, you're going to have a variation of toxicity and people that want to be the change that they want to see in the place that they're in. And I
Yeah.
think we're really unique in this place where I think you could probably maybe put, you can probably name 10 solid people within our sphere that are really trying to contribute to change. And like, to really try to contribute to change, there's a hope, right? And so like where do you get your hope from? Like, what is the essence of hope? It's got to be something spiritual, because the people that don't have hope are the people that quit. And like, that's maybe the change. It's like, do you have hope that you're going to feel better? Do you have hope that you're going to be healed? Do you have hope that you're going to be a great bodybuilder? Do you have hope that you're going to be, a good dad? Do you have hope that you're going to be a great spouse? Do you have hope for anything in your life?
Mhm.
And hope is an attribute of being in relationship with your creator. And I
Yeah.
think ultimately, I think that's what I also try to coach my people with. It's like, okay, you can go and do the things that I ask you to do, and it might give you an outcome, but is the outcome sustainable? Like, are you going to be able to continue that over and over and over again? Has it changed your life?
Yeah.
And I don't think you can change your life without hope,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that in of itself changes it. And like,
Yeah.
I've even seen you. It's like, man, how many times have you been knocked on your butt? How many times have you had a bodybuilder like, you know, do you wrong or whatever? And it's like, you get back up and you go do it again, and you perform better the next time. And
Yeah.
I've had the same situation, and other people have had the same situation. And you could choose to say, you know what, I'm going to write all those guys off. I don't think there's any good in this, and I don't love it anymore. And there's like hope and love that's ingrained in us, that wants us to move forward.
Every day, there's so many days, even now, where I think, man, this is all kind of silly, and I don't know if I'm really having the impact that I think I am having, and so on and so forth. And I know deep down that I am, and I know deep down that it makes sense and that it's purposeful, but it would be very, very easy to think otherwise, and it'd be very easy to say, this is too hard. This is a waste. This is, whatever, whatever. But every day I wake up, and every day I want to serve people, and every day I go into these difficult clients that drive me nuts sometimes. But
Yeah.
I'm still trying my best, and I'm still trying to deliver, and I never quit doing it because deep down I'm like, this is meaningful. This is what I'm here for. This is my purpose, and I hope that every single person ever can experience purpose in their life somewhere.
And what's cool is we actually have evidence, right? Like, you can go down the list, and what has it been, 15 years now, 16 years now that you've been coaching,
Yeah.
whatever it's been. You can probably go down the list. You probably have some sort of ledger of some sort where you're like, well, I changed Nancy's life. I changed Jim's life. I changed Kenneth's life. I know you've changed mine. I know you've changed Trey's. I know you've changed. There's more people that I can probably talk about that are connected to you, and you've changed their life in some sort of way that's so tangible that it would silence anyone that would say the difference.
Yeah.
And
The funny thing about that too is that the within some of those people, if I talk to them, some of the people that have achieved really high things from a bodybuilding perspective, they would probably say, if you said what was the most impactful thing about that experience, they wouldn't say that it was the IFBB Pro card that they won.
100%.
I mean, that's up there, dude. That's super cool. I'd like to have one.
Right,
but
right,
but they would probably say something completely different. That was
right,
the most impactful thing. And that, to me, that's what keeps me going, right?
right,
That
right.
I mean,
Same.
that's the stuff that keeps me going. And again, you can very much relate to that. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think at the end of this, I think people have to have hope. I think they have to have love for themselves. They have to have love for other people. And if they love themselves and they love other people and they have hope, then they can change anything. But if you don't have those things, then you've got to learn how to get them. And like, learning how to get them is a journey. And it's this journey of like, okay, what do I do and what do I not do? And if you have somebody that's kind of walked the path, and that was really cool about yours and my relationship, even though I'm 43, and what are you, 33 now?
35.
34, 35? So I'm older than you. You have wisdom in areas of your life that have allowed me to walk after your footsteps, and it has changed the trajectory of my life. And so that's the cool thing about being a coach and being a mentor and being a leader. And I think that all goes back around to this lack of masculinity that's in some of these people's lives. Because if they have someone that's leading them towards hope and love and these other attributes, then those people are probably going to be pretty solid, you
For
know?
sure. Yeah. Yep. And the next live, we're going to talk about fun stuff like how many grams of gear you should take to get big.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All the mistakes we've made.
Dude, because people probably think this is all that they think coaching is. I'm like, dude,
It
I would
is
be
right
so
now.
I would be so happy
If it
if we
became
could just
that
talk
simple.
about getting jacked, huge, and shredded all day. Oh my god!
I literally
You
just
even
said
under
somebody, I literally just told somebody, I was like, everybody probably thinks that I'm like I'm a therapist behind a coach's veil, and that I love health phases more than anything else. And that's all I want to do is
I don't
talk
want to
about
do it.
feelings and mental health and do health phases. It is the least favorite thing of my whole entire life. All I want to do, really, when I really got into this, dude, I wanted to be a bodybuilding coach. And not only did I want to be a bodybuilding coach, I wanted to be I wanted to be one of the best, like one of the
Yeah,
guys that has like a whole slew of pros at the Olympic. You got 13 people and you're just literally living the life. That's what I wanted. But then trajectory changes because of all these other things that happen. And now we're talking about the things we're talking about. And it
yep,
would be a whole lot more fun to talk about all the other things.
dude. I'm every day, man. I'm when I get to, it's a good day.
So let's do that next time. Let's just
Yeah.
talk about like mistakes that we made, like legitimate mistakes. Like
Okay.
just drag it all out. That's all like I did 5 grams of gear in a day or something like that.
My I've done. I've never done 5 grams a year in a day, but I will. But I've hurt myself in more ways than I
I
care
have to.
to.
I have to.
Yeah.
I
Cool,
appreciate the
man.
call and
Well, I
the
appreciate
time.
you taking the time. I'll definitely reshare this, and hopefully everyone can listen if they came in late. And always a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. I'll see you later.
Later.
Bye.